So we're ready for our talk here. We got David Croisant talking about making Bitcoin cypherpunk again. Give it up for David.
Thanks, guys. Hear me all right? This thing's pointed in the right direction. I like to gauge the room before most of my talks. Give me a show of hands if you are at least familiar with Bitcoin. You could maybe give a little brief description of what you think it is. So pretty much everybody, looks like. And then give me a thumbs up, sideways, or down on how you're feeling right now about Bitcoin. We've got some ups, some middles, lots of ups and middles, and one giant down, one emphatic down. Okay. Cool. Well, so what I want to talk about is making Bitcoin cypherpunk again. We got to start, obviously, with what cypherpunk is, because I know that's not the, might be a little bit of an esoteric term for some folks. Maybe not this crowd, but I like to do definitions. Hopefully my head's not in the way. Let me know if I need to move. So punks that are into ciphers, obviously, right? So when we talk about a punk, we think about like a rebel, someone that's into counterculture. Ciphers are just encryption algorithms, right? And encryption coming from Greek kryptos, meaning hidden or to hide. This term was coined by a woman, went by St. Jude. Her name was Jude Million, I think. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Helped create the first public online computer system, which was a bulletin board system called Community Memory. She's actually a fascinating character. I would encourage you to check her out. Slides will be available for all the references and stuff here today. This was a movement that was born in the 80s and inspired by CypherPunk. It's a very similar name, but this was like a sci-fi genre in the 60s and 70s, kind of leading in through the 80s. A lot of the heroes from those cyberpunk stories you would consider cypherpunks a lot of the time, so they're kind of almost anti-heroes in some cases, dystopian type situations. And then here's some of the literature that really helped define cypherpunk as a movement. Started with a guy named David Chaum. If you're not familiar, as Bitcoiners, you probably ought to be. He really foundational technology came out of this guy, and he had this paper called Security Without Identification, Transaction Systems to Make Big Brother Obsolete. Obsolete, not include them in what we're doing. The Crypto Anarchist Manifesto by Tim May came a little bit later, and a Cypherpunks Manifesto was sort of is what a lot of people think about when they think about cypherpunks. So I'd encourage you to read those. None of them are particularly long and complex. The Chaum piece maybe a little bit more. This is a quote from St. Jude that I thought was amazing. Hacking is the clever circumvention of imposed limits, whether those limits are imposed by your government, your own personality, or the laws of physics. So there's a couple offshoots, modern offshoots of cypherpunk movement. One of them is known as lunar punk. These are folks that are aware and observant of the times that we live in, what's going on. They're conscious of the fact that tech has often been and is currently still being used for evil purposes. That practical defense is necessary for survival when we're talking about these technologies. And these are realistic and prepared individuals and organizations that call themselves lunar punks. Contrary to that, and these are on the left and right for a reason, I think these really bring out our left and right brain as a conscious society. Solar punk here, representing more of the right side, they're more forward-thinking, looking into the future. Believe that tech will bring about absolute abundance, right? So this is a little bit more of a utopian idea compared to the dystopian. This tech being synergistic with nature, so living in harmony with our natural world is very important to this movement. And they are more optimistic and idealistic, all right? So you can see how these are maybe two sides of the same thing, and I think both are important, and bringing both in balance is ultimately going to be a way forward to success for us. So a couple images that might kind of emphasize this point. The lunar punks, identity's hidden. They're carrying, it's maybe tough to see, but if you're familiar, this is an iconic weapon. This is the FGC-9, which stands for Fuck Gun Control 9mm. You can print this at home, at your own home. The only piece that you can't print is the barrel, which you can buy a piece of pipe from Home Depot and electroplate that for the rifling. That's the only difficult part of that construction. Solar punks, more into gardening, all the, regenerative energy sources, harmony with nature, so on and so forth. So I think these two things together are really powerful. They often seem to like clash online, and I hope that going forward we can actually merge instead of clashing. So why is this topic even important? And I'm going to read one long quote, and I promise that's the only one. And this is from the Gulag Archipelago, if anyone's read it. And how we burned in the camps later, thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family? Or if, during the periods of mass arrests, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their layers, paling with terror at every bang of the downstairs door and at every step in the staircase, but had understood that they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else was at hand. The organs would very quickly have suffered a shortage of officers, transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt. If we didn't love freedom enough, and even more, we had no awareness of the real situation, we purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. I keep that quote on my computer monitor, and that drives me forward a lot of days. I thought this was hilarious. This is, sorry, it switched on my monitor. This, I actually inverted this, so the pentagram was right side up, but I thought it was more appropriate that it be inverted. This is from some sort of a fan fiction on a website called Wikidot, and this is a fictional organization. You might guess what it might be modeled after, called the Global Occult Coalition, and this is their logo, which I inverted because I thought that was a little bit more appropriate. The point of the talk today is that we need to understand the enemy, and we do have an enemy. If you think ancient occult cartels are stupid, they've been around a while for a long time, or for a reason. This is not their first revolution, right? Bitcoin is not the first challenge to this power. If you think back to the Occupy movement, if you were involved or if you just watched it, this is something that really blew up quickly, was global movement, and it was eventually shut down by force locally. And then the ideas started to filter into, well, maybe we should just elect some politicians, or maybe we could get this law passed, and it kind of dies out that way, right? So it went from, we can physically take control because these buildings actually belong to us, to, well, we'll just work within the system and play nice. So that's a tried and true tactic, and I want you to keep that in mind. Who's heard of embrace, extend, extinguish? Not very many people, a few people. So this is a notion, I think Microsoft came up with this, is that right? Yeah. The idea was that there's this burgeoning movement, the open source movement in software and computers, that we can collaboratively build things in the open instead of closing them off, charging fees, paywalling, censoring, so on and so forth. And Microsoft's strategy for dealing with this was that they would say, okay, we love all this stuff. We think it's great. And then we'll even extend it with our own stuff. And then what we can do is we can slowly kind of make those extensions requirements, and then we can close off those extensions and then slowly extinguish the original thing. Microsoft, not too long ago, or I guess it was a few years ago now, bought GitHub, which is the largest open source repository. If you're not familiar with Edward Bernays, he literally wrote the books on propaganda and public relations. I would encourage you to check out that work. I also urge you to check out, on a rainy day when you don't mind being a little bit depressed, The Century of the Self and the Minds of Men. They're long films, but they explain deeply the problems that we face, the depths of brainwashing and mind manipulation and these mental weapons that are being employed. So let's bring it back to Bitcoin. Bitcoin culture is definitely changing. If you've been around more than a few years, I think you would agree. For better and worse, we've got some great innovations, and we've got some things that are concerning. There's a lot of ego coming out from Bitcoiners. I'm guilty. Everything in this presentation, by the way, I'm guilty of. This presentation is directed at me as well as to everyone in the room, as well as to everyone watching. So number go up, right? well, if the price goes up, it's a good thing. The market is justifying what we've done, right? It feels nice. It's nice that I don't have to explain what the thing is or be laughed at when I'm explaining what the thing is, but we can't get an ego about that. And more important is that some are mistaking all of this that's coming, like through this ego, we're mistaking this for victory, right? And what breeds tyranny? Complacency. So why is Bitcoin even legal? If this is a big revolution, that seems like that would be something that governments would not be all about, right? Image generators are great. I put in Bitcoin versus government, and this is what it came up with. So two guys are, I think they have some wands, I don't know, some digital technology they're fighting with. So why is Bitcoin legal? The first idea might be that it's impossible to stop, right? So that's a possibility. Maybe all innovation is good in the eyes of those that are watching this thing, and maybe they just want to let it go for that reason. Maybe they're stupid. This is the Trojan horse theory, like, oh, we've got this great technology, we'll usher it in, and then we'll just dissolve the central banks from inside, right? If you don't think that they see this coming and read the things that Bitcoiners talk about, I think that's a little bit naive.
Which country are you talking about?
All countries.
Well, I mean, it's different in all countries. In terms of legality.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. So save that till questions if you could. Thank you. No, you're good. And then the third possibility is that Bitcoin's maybe not actually a threat to these guys, right? Or Bitcoiners, more importantly, because Bitcoiners are the ones that run Bitcoin. And again, think about embrace, extend, extinguish. How could that strategy potentially apply? So let's talk about the ownership of Bitcoin. Where am I at here? So this is a big chunk. So the good news here, and there is good news sprinkled in here, and I promise you I'm going to get to solutions and all that. I'm not going to be a complete Debbie Downer. I get accused of that a lot. Good news here is that individuals own most Bitcoin, right? So it's very difficult to say exactly where Bitcoin lies. It's pseudonymous, if you will. There is a huge chunk of the supply that's been inactive for a very long time. That percentage actually rises a little bit each year, so it's hard to say exactly where that amount lies. It's hard to say how much of that is lost, how much of that is people that are sitting on it and have access to those keys, so on and so forth. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Satoshi is GCHQ, which is British intelligence. We need to, consider that possibility. Exchanges hold a decent chunk, about 11% by this chart. Miners come next, and then we have ETFs, funds, companies, things of that nature. And then down there, pretty low still, is governments. Okay, so not a horrible outlook right here. Can that supply be controlled or manipulated? So a lot of people say gold and silver cannot be manipulated. I don't think that I would quite agree with that. So you might want to look into that if you're not familiar with whether or not that's possible. And there is some research that might suggest that Bitcoin market booms have been already subject to manipulation. I will make these slides available, and I made sure and include the author and date, so you'll be able to look up all of these headlines and stuff if you'd like to. Obviously, I only have so much time. Exchanges. So some more good news. We see there's been a kind of a peak in exchange ownership. I'm talking about centralized exchanges here. Decentralized ones a little bit harder to track. But the ownership of Bitcoin by centralized exchanges has been dropping in the last few years. It's a little bit less impressive when we look at that chart as a total percentage of the supply of Bitcoin, but you do see that it is dropping there. What about the public-private partnership? So hopefully you don't think this guy is your friend. He's not. I hope I'm not the first person to tell you that. This is a fascinating kind of thing here. I'm really getting into trusts as private contracts that we can use to interact with each other, form organizations, things of that nature, without incorporating with the government. Trump Media, I don't know the exact name of the company, Trump Media and Technology, something like that. They are, the majority stockholder is a trust for which Donald Trump is the grantor and the sole beneficiary. The sole trustee is his son. Okay, so he controls all of this. They're looking to get a couple billion in Bitcoin. Am I in the way? Can anybody read that? Okay. And this isn't the only one, right? There's dozens of public companies that are getting into Bitcoin, crypto more broadly, but Bitcoin obviously is the big dog in the room. What about mining? State of the union on mining here. This is from my mempool instance this morning. It might be a little bit tough to read, but the gist here is, as you know, same question: can this be controlled and manipulated? We've got 4 pools right now. The biggest 4 pools have around 69% of hash, which is, you know, why I did top 4 and not top 5. Same thing. A few years ago, Marathon mined the first OFAC-compliant Bitcoin block, so this is well within the realm of reality. 4 doors is not a lot of doors to knock down and ask for a favor. So again, not a great situation, not unfixable, but we need to do something about it immediately. Use. This headline says, is Monero keeping Bitcoin's CypherPunk dream alive, which I thought was appropriate. That's a pretty recent article. This is a social media post by a website called coincards.com. They sell gift cards for cryptocurrency. And in the past, so I think the bottom there is about a year ago, Bitcoin was about 30% of their purchases, which was beaten only by a stablecoin USDC. That has been eclipsed this year by Monero, which is now 34% of their purchases. Bitcoin is now about 26%, down there in second place. This is a trend. This isn't just one place. These are active dark markets, darknet markets, as of about, I think, 6 months ago, so a little bit dated. 1 or 2 of these might not even exist anymore, but such is the nature of the darknet. A few years ago, these were basically all Bitcoin. Now they are, every single one of them includes Monero, and some of them are actually abandoning Bitcoin. So people whose freedom depends on their transactions not being traced are, it seems, shifting to other projects. OPSEC. This means operational security for those that are not familiar. This is a pretty awesome headline, by the way. Ross is free. That's amazing. And he's also a mega millionaire at this point. Does anyone see anything wrong with his headline? That we can know that Ross Ulbricht now has 300 Bitcoin is a problem, right? This is none of our business. And it would probably be preferred by the donor that this was not a headline either. Currently, that donor is unknown. However, some companies who are terrible at doing chain analysis claim that this comes from a darknet market. Since their completely unscientific methods are completely unproven, we have no idea. But the claims will be made, and horrible things happen when claims are made, even if unsubstantiated. There are currently developers facing prison time on unsubstantiated chain analysis, this specific company claims. So this is a problem. We would prefer that we did not know this. All right, enough of the bad news. What can we do about this? The good news is the things I'm going to talk about will generally actually apply even beyond Bitcoin. So even if Bitcoin ends up not being the cypherpunk dream that it started out as, we can still apply this stuff, okay? This came down, I decided to 2 Ps, just first 2 things that popped into my head that made sense, and that was principles and practices, okay? So principles. I thought this was kind of funny. Yeah. So for those that have been around for a decade, you'll remember the language a decade ago, and you'll remember, and you'll be a little bit maybe less thrilled with the language today that we get from the Bitcoin community. A lot of, again, numbers going up, that's a good thing. The government's adopting it. Well, we did expect this, but to cheer it on, not my favorite. So principles literally kind of it means first things. I think it's from Greek principia. Don't quote me on that. So this is our foundation. This is what we build upon, right? Bitcoin ultimately is built by us, right? It's built, produced, and used by and for humans, right? So we control this whole thing. This belongs to us. This is a human-first situation, a human-first problem and solution. And human problems supersede technical problems, right? So if we can fix things at the human level, the technical solutions will come. I believe this strongly. There's not a BIP for resisting tyranny, it turns out. There's also not a BIP for obsoleting central banking cartels, although that's kind of the whole idea. For those who don't know, a BIP is a Bitcoin improvement proposal. So this is anyone can produce a proposal to improve Bitcoin, as the name suggests, and these are generally going to be technical solutions. So again, this means that we in this room are the ones that control the future of these projects, which I think is empowering. This is not a networking talk, but I wanted to make a networking metaphor here. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but understand that this is how networking works on computers. And at the very, very bottom, that number one physical layer, this is our cables, our hardware, routers. This is the actual backbone, the physical backbone of what makes up the internet. And everything else is built upon that, right? And I want you to think about humans as that physical number one layer to Bitcoin, all right? KYC, this is my least favorite thing about Bitcoin. I don't know if you can read this, but we've got a Bitcoiner dumping their KYC Bitcoin into the financial freedom well and therefore poisoning it. KYC is our biggest problem. Our biggest problem. If this is the only thing you take away from this is to stop using KYC, I would be perfectly happy with that. KYC is a contract, and I should step back here. If you don't know what KYC is, this is a set of laws. It stands for Know Your Customer. It essentially means that banks and cryptocurrency exchanges, our banks, have to identify their customers. So this is like when you go to the exchange and they ask you, you need to take a selfie with your passport or your identification so that we know who you are. This is registration of your Bitcoin. That's a problem. And even if I never do this, the fact that everyone else is doing it is a problem. Because now when I exchange with them, we interact, we can start, transactions can start to be linked. In the case of organizations, incorporation is how they form this contract with the state. And the idea here is that we don't need the state. Bitcoin does not need the state. So we don't need to be contracting with them for any reason. The number one thing that I hear about why to use KYC exchanges is that it is good for newcomers because it is easy. I have a big problem with that because you are essentially, you're robbing them of the way to do things in a way that will help them going forward, all right? So, the old adage of handing a man a fish versus teaching them how to fish, okay? You're kind of dooming them to a lifetime of doing things in a way that is not for their best, in their best interest. And as a result, unlearning is required, and there might have to be some kind of camp where re-education occurs. I'm kidding. Again, the transactions that people are making from these exchanges affect me, even if I never contract with these exchanges. Luckily, like all contracts, Know Your Customer is entirely voluntary. Nobody has to use these services. And I would argue that the only thing that they offer is convenience, and the cost of that convenience is far, far too high. So what can we do instead? Actually, we're going to get to that in just a second. Remember, embrace, extend, extinguish. We have, as Bitcoiners, often wanted to define money by the three principles, which are store of value, medium of exchange, and a unit of account. Lately, I've only been hearing one of these anymore. So this seems to be the new narrative, which is the store of value. This is the number go up. I'm defending my wealth. I'm hedging against the dollar, so on and so forth. It is a great defense against government currencies, no doubt. Unfortunately, it's generally on its own going to require on and off ramps to the thing that you're defending against. Okay? If you're not using this as a medium of exchange, you're not buying anything. So you're having to go into coin of the realm in order to purchase the things that you're defending, that you've been able to successfully defend against, use that currency. Medium of exchange, on the other hand, this is the freedom money. This is where we can exchange amongst ourselves without anyone's permission, okay? So I don't know who first said this, but it's great. It's not fuck you money if you're not saying fuck you, all right? If you're not using this amongst your communities to exchange value, it's not working, okay? Store of value is great, but it cannot be the only thing that we use this for. Let's get to practices. There's another great generated image. I cannot remember what I typed in here, but I thought this was great. This guy's prepared. He's got his Bitcoin helmet on. We are the sum of our habits. This is a paraphrase. I don't know, it's probably a Chinese proverb or something. I didn't look it up, but basically what we do every day is who we are. Okay, what we constantly do is who we are, human beings. What we are being every day is who we are. Stop using KYC is the absolute first thing, the bare minimum that we can do. If we don't do this, I think we will probably lose Bitcoin and have to move on to something else. Fungibility matters. Fungibility basically means sameness. So this is the idea that if I take out a $20 bill in any city in the United States, I can generally pay for something with that. If, however, the person receiving that $20 bill has the ability to scan the barcode, find out where that money came from, and realize that it came from a less than desirable place, like a darknet market, then they might not take that, and then that would no longer be fungible money. All right. So Bitcoin, for structural reasons and because of the way that it's being used currently, is a series of serial numbers, and unfortunately they are trivial to track to at least some extent if no other precautions are taken. Coin control. So this is the idea that because these transactions all have history, we unfortunately have to pay attention to how we use these in our wallets, and a good wallet will have coin control. If you have questions about any of this stuff that's more hands-on, please ask me afterwards or after the talk. Peer-to-peer and decentralized exchanges. My favorite way to get into any cryptocurrency is to trade your goods or your time, your services, whatever that you have that makes you unique as a human. Trade that for the cryptocurrency. That's the best way to get it. There's no third party. There's no government. There's no permission. No one's asking you to take a passport selfie. No one's asking for your social security number. It's just a free exchange between humans. If you want to buy, first check with your community. There's always someone who wants to buy and always someone who wants to sell. So there's a lot of opportunities for exchanges at meetups, at Bitcoin events. There's an entire building now, the Space, in Denver, where you can go and meet people that might be interested in trading with you. As far as exchanges, we have a couple options here, BISC and RoboSats, which are actually software that you can use to make exchanges. There is no KYC, and they are decentralized to an extent, so a little bit better. There used to be more options than there are now, which is unfortunate. The Monero community, however, has been banned from almost every centralized exchange, and they don't care. This is what I got into Bitcoin for, the honey badger, right? The honey badger don't care, and all of a sudden, the honey badger, not so much. So I just want to put this in here to say that it is possible, right? There are communities that have already gone through the turmoil of having this stuff actually forcibly removed from them. We always have the option to remove ourselves, but they've had this imposed on them, and they're doing just fine. Again, they are being picked up as the medium of exchange of choice on these darknet markets. Some more practices. This is clearly a Bitcoin miner mixing his coins. So mining. What can we do about the mining situation? You can do it yourself, so you can make your own Bitcoin, right? That's pretty cool. It's obviously later in the game, but that doesn't mean you can't still do it. There are some cool ways to reuse the waste product that Bitcoin miners produce, which is heat. So most of us in here probably really enjoy hot water. Most of us in here in a Denver winter probably enjoy hot air in our homes. Bitcoin miners can produce both of those things to offset the cost of the electricity that they burn. And then if you have ways of producing your own energy, you can expend any excess that you have on this as well. Ocean is a really interesting project. It's a new pool that decentralizes a lot of the process of mining. So it's a little bit complex to use right now, but it is a cool project to keep an eye on. Shake your miner's hand. You've heard shake your what do you call it? Your farmer's hand. So know where your food comes from. Why don't you know where your Bitcoin's coming from, right? Instead of going to one of these centralized exchanges, or even maybe some exchange that is less reputable, let's say, you could meet local miners, and they are always looking to, they need to pay their bills often in dollars, and so they're often willing to exchange some of their Bitcoin for dollars. Mixing. So we have this idea, it seemed like it was more popular about 5 years ago, of making every spend a coin join. This helps to refresh the pool of existing Bitcoin that's out there, such that the links to practices that some people don't care for can be broken. These solutions need more attention, unfortunately. This has been a little bit of a, I don't want to say that it's dying, because that's not true, but we've taken some hits. The developers of Whirlpool, which is a very popular mixing software, are currently facing an indictment, or facing, I'm not sure where they're at in the process, but they're facing legal action at the moment. I believe they're on house arrest. I don't think they're in prison, but don't quote me on that. We do have Join Market. The easiest way to use this if you're non-technical would be on the Start9 operating system known as StartOS. They do their best to make this point and click, and that's the easiest way to use this, but you can spin up Join Market on your own computer as well. So this is a great mixing service, and it is decentralized. It doesn't require any central authority. So I mentioned the Whirlpool developers were facing legal action. The wallet that they were producing was called Samurai. There is a new team of developers that has kind of taken this in stride, and they've made some improvements, and they call this Ashigaru wallet. So this kind of carries on that same thing, but we still don't have Whirlpool mixing available, but you can, from the wallet directly, you can do some coin joins and some collaborative spending, which is nice. Specifically, they also use BIP47, which is paynims. So this is a random identifier that's given to you for your wallet, such that you don't have to just hand over a Bitcoin address publicly. Bolt 12 is another great privacy feature for Bitcoin. This is a Lightning option where you can receive to a static address, meaning an unchanging Lightning invoice. So you can post up a single QR code, and you can receive funds to that without explicitly or without worrying about the privacy implications. Bolts is a cool exchange. This is specifically for going between on-chain Bitcoin, Lightning, and I believe they also support Liquid. So for example, if you wanted to get funds into a Lightning node from on-chain, but you didn't want to open a channel directly that was associated with your node, you could swing it through the Bolts exchange. I would encourage you to use alternate networks. This is where all the fun is at, right? Tor specifically is a really awesome community. There's a lot of stuff going on there. It's not just organized crime selling drugs. There's people there that care deeply about human freedom. There's really cool communities, and I would highly encourage you to check that out. It's not difficult to use. These days, all you do is go to torproject.org, I think it is, download the Tor browser. It's literally a Firefox clone, and then you can start plugging in onion addresses and visiting these websites with a high degree of security. This is clearly a circular economy. You can tell because it's circular. Be aware of what's going on. I think that's really important. That's one of the most important things we can do here. It's important to understand that developers don't just they're not just going to solve this problem for us. Like I said, this is a human problem. Developers are pulling weight the best they can, and they need help, okay? And we can help them. There is a quote from the CypherPunk manifesto, which is that cypherpunks write code. You might just shorten this to cypherpunks write, okay? If you're not technical, you can write documentation, you can create media, you can tell your communities about this and show them. You can have workshops. Hey, it's not that hard, it's just a phone app. This is how you send, this is how you receive. This is how we can form circular economies. Kind of covered that. Again, so we can produce our own propaganda, our own public relations, right? We can do all this stuff without third parties. This starts in our communities, so this is on you guys. Whatever you want your community to be, this is what it's going to be. Again, medium of exchange. So when it comes to Bitcoin, Lightning and eCash are going to make this a lot easier. They come with trade-offs, but if this is within a community that you trust, they're very powerful tools. They are a little bit more bleeding edge, specifically eCash, but they're ready for prime time in as far as the foundation. Run your own software. This used to be very difficult. It's getting easier and easier. I help run the Digital Independence Lab, where we constantly host workshops and show how easy it is to use tools that you see in movies. It's not all guys typing at 100 words per minute into terminals and just making bank accounts drain in third-party, in other countries and so on and so forth. This stuff can be point and click. It can be really easy. It can be fun. You can really be empowered by running your own software, using your own tools, and then providing them once you're comfortable to your families, your communities. So go dark and build the light. And I'll leave you with this. May such great labor not be in vain. Thank you very much for your time. Really quick, I'll just shout out the Denver Digital Independence Lab. This is their Signal group. So if you use Signal, you can join there and join the conversation. Specifically, we host workshops where when you come, we will do a thing together, and when you leave, you will have that thing that you can use when you leave. So that's the entire point. It will always be a workshop, and you will always learn something that you can use when you leave there. I'm firing up a project. Don't judge me. It's in its infancy, but I do have a donations page up if you feel like supporting this kind of work, and you will find only privacy-conscious payment options there. Thanks very much.
Awesome. So we're going to move on to some Q&A here. So if you got any questions, raise your hand. We also got complimentary pizza in the back too, and plenty of drinks, so please help yourselves. Awesome. Questions?
One of obvious question: why do you think that Ulbricht received 300 bitcoins? It was some kind of not because I thought he received that from himself. It was some kind of legalizing his own money.
So I have no idea where that money came from.
So for me, it was kind of.
So could you rephrase the question?
Because you said that.
Like somebody he might have sent it to himself. Like somebody.
Yeah, I believe he just legalized his own money. You said that it's kind of bad situation that we have heard about that, because I believe he made it public just to say yes, I got money from somebody, but actually I believe it was his own money.
Could be, yeah, very well could be. But so the point though is, even if he's sending himself money, we shouldn't know about it, right? That's none of our business.
I believe he made it intentionally.
Maybe.
It was his decision,
Maybe.
not somebody else.
Yeah, how some of these more like concerning trends, like how long do you realistically think we have before it's sort of too far gone for some of these trends to be course corrected?
That's a tough question. We have to turn it around now, is my answer to that. If it can be saved, it has to be turned around now. It's not going to. Bitcoin is going to continue to improve, and it's going to continue to see these invasions. So what that turns into, I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball. What I do know is that if we don't start changing it, I'm going to start putting my energy in other directions for sure. So personally, I need to see the change pretty immediately.
Okay, I have two questions.
Sure.
The first of which is when you say centralized exchange, does that mean exchanging Bitcoin for fiat?
Yeah. Yeah. So an exchange can be. Let me clarify that. So an exchange can be. So this means centralized infrastructure. So one point of authority. Now it could be that exchange does not adhere to KYC policies. Okay, and those exchanges do exist. But the most specific problem is those that do adhere to KYC policies. So this is going to be your Coinbase, your Binance, the big names, the ones that are sponsoring military parades through DC for some reason. Those are the guys that I'm mostly concerned about.
Okay, great. And my second is, I'm taking it that you're a Bitcoin maximalist, right?
I would not call myself a Bitcoin maximalist. No, I'm definitely relating with the Monero community quite a bit these days, for sure. I am a freedom maximalist, though.
Yeah, freedom maximalist. Love that. Hey, can you? There's a couple of just random logistical questions. Is there any ATMs without KYC anymore? Are those all gone?
That's a great question. The answer is I don't know. I did try to use an ATM the other day, and it scared me right away.
All of them are KYC late that I've heard. I was just curious if anyone knew.
Yeah, there was a time not that long ago where you could use an ATM either with just a phone number, depending on the amount, or with nothing. In my experience, those are disappearing, but I couldn't speak to more broadly.
And then what about doing over the counter, like just with somebody, OTC? What's a normal percent that we see in the community these days for a percent? Like, because I know some of the percentages for Bitcoin ATMs were going insane last I heard. And I'm just curious, like what, this could also be for the room too, but like if anyone's in that world of OTC coin, what would be a normal transaction fee for somebody broker in that?
So the best way for you to find that out is you can visit these exchanges like BISC or RoboSats, and you can see what the spread is. You can actually create an order at any percentage you want. On RoboSats, it's not uncommon for me to see, 2% all the way up to 6 or 7%. Depends on the day. There's not a gigantic liquidity, so you can stick your order in there and you can put it 0.1% under the next guy and kind of sneak your order in. In community peer-to-peer trades, it's not uncommon at all, in my experience, for people to just trade at spot, some agreed spot price, depending on the oracle they use.
Quick question. I assume you've been into Bitcoin many, many years?
I have.
Okay, so let's just say 2015. If you're in it for that long, and the price is that, you did mention the point about price go up, price go up.
Mm-hmm.
If in 5 years the price is $1, $2, $3 million per coin, I mean, isn't that the ultimate freedom that you've created for yourself? Because you're a freedom maximalist, right? So, like, at what point does that? I guess it's almost subsuming mainstream, and yeah, we are, I guess, giving up a few things, but the fact you've been in it for so long, isn't that kind of the opposite Trojan horse to where the cypherpunk has actually infiltrated mainstream and we've actually created sound money?
Let me try and break that question down. So in the beginning, you asked, so isn't it good? Let's presume that I've been in this since 2015, that I had, I don't know, 100 Bitcoin, and that in 3 years, they're $1 million each. I've made $100 million. Isn't that great? It's pretty great for me. Yeah, it's pretty great. I think that the expense paid, especially since in order to move that wealth, I would have to use KYC centralized exchanges, almost certainly. It's going to be extremely troublesome, as the government is well aware, for you to move millions of dollars peer-to-peer in any kind of timely fashion. The expense paid is way too high, in my opinion. So for my individual freedom, yeah, $100 million is great. For the community, it's not fixing the problem, right? So my ability to be financially free is not fixing the human level problem for the greater good, as it were, for lack of a better term.
All right, but the human problem also, I mean, no matter what, everybody is dealing with declining fiat value, purchasing power. We see inflation everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like eggs are getting more expensive or everything is getting more expensive. It's that our shit fiat is just worth less and less every day.
Totally agree.
So, I mean, isn't that kind of like the freedom that we're talking about?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's a great defense against these are banking cartels. These are cartels. They've been around for not 100 years, hundreds of years. This is not a new idea. And this is the best defense that we've ever had against it. The reason I'm giving this presentation is because I don't want to lose that. I don't want that to turn into a digital panopticon nightmare. Okay. And that's just kind of the writing that I see on the wall. I think it's preventable based on not using these government tools, these corporations that are married to the government. That's why I call it GovCorp. I think they're the same entity. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
But can't you also, I mean, you don't need to be a maximalist, but can't you also use Monero for like certain things, for certain tools, privacy and transactions? And
sure.
There is no, like, convert part of your Bitcoin into Monero, but still, ultimately, if Bitcoin is going to be $1 or $2 million in 5 or 10 years, I mean, I think that conveys more freedom than you can possibly find anywhere else. No?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. It is it's maybe a longer conversation. I'm happy to continue it. However, the short answer would be that the store of value cannot be the sole focus, right? So ideally, and the maximalist opinion would be that we don't necessarily need any other cryptocurrency projects, because Bitcoin could do all three and be sound money. And that's what I would really like to see. And in order to do that, we have to be able to exchange freely. And in order to do that, we can't have a stamped history on every single one of our transactions. And we can't have to ask permission. And we can't have to rely on miners that are going to, or we can't have to rely on miners to transact transactions that might have some history, even if that history has nothing to do with us, right? So yes, I agree with you. Great tool for financial freedom, great defense against what we're facing. That's why I got into it. I want to see it succeed, and I want to see it do that by maintaining all three aspects of currency.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess I want to kind of respond and follow on to that is I think when you talk about liberty and freedom, for personal liberty and freedom, having a huge amount of wealth is wonderful. But I think to me, the purpose has never been about my personal gains as much as like empowering the people against larger control. So like, I guess in that mind though, I see the trend moving much more towards like, as you put this out, this is a people technology, it's a people problem. Mm-hmm. And those who use and have interest, invest their time and energy and resources into this are the ones who are ultimately it's serving. And it seems like that ultimately the people who are driving the most interest and value into the system right now are the big banks, right? And we're seeing this transform from like an anarchist technology to like fintech, right? So I don't know if that's necessarily a good or bad thing, but I do wonder if you've thought about what ways we might be able to inverse that poison pill, so to speak, where you have the technology and the people who have this vested interest, who now have the technology and the tools to pressure from maybe ground up movements. How can we use the technology to push the fintech in the direction that we think is more liberty preserving?
Yeah, that's a powerful question. Good question. Trying to condense this answer. I don't want to go on a rant. Basically, everything that we're doing right now is voluntary, right? So as I said earlier on, we are lucky in that the control isn't there. There is no central authority that has any control over Bitcoin right now. My concern is that it's possible, not that it has happened. I want to make that clear. And maybe I should have been more clear about that in the presentation. So what we can do is stop volunteering into these relationships with these entities that not only don't have our best interest at heart, but are actively attempting to continue what they've been doing. Some might call it slavery, but it's at least oppressive. So we can withdraw these relationships. We can stop using KYC exchanges. We can stop tagging our Bitcoin. We can start using mixers. We can start using Tor. We can start using these tools that are that already work well and are getting easy to use as well. So that's the short answer.
How do you increase that education? It's something no one knows how to do that stuff.
Good more points. I have another just quick little logistical questions too. I'm kind of like trying to seep all your knowledge I can. What other privacy coins are you watching or like at all? Any of them that I'm just curious about. I just looked at Monero, $320. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I really don't look out too much at the broader cryptocurrency space. If I'm honest, Monero has my attention because it's used and because it works as a medium of exchange. That's the only one that I really pay attention to.
Okay, last question here. I really love the advice, the practices. Stop using KYC. Like that's the number one thing. Take away from this. What's the secondary practice or tool that you'd recommend is kind of that next priority? Because you gave some great tools, some great practices that people can adopt. Anyone that stands out?
Just build community. Community is the most powerful thing that we have. We are far, far, far outnumbering the people that are imposing these regulations and systems. So build community. Get to know. You're doing it. You're already here, right? So you understand what I'm saying. But these are people problems, and they are solvable, we together. So for sure, even maybe almost more important than not using KYC exchanges, but cutting those contracts off is pretty easy individual action. So I put that as number one.
Awesome, and that's our talk, everybody. Give it up for David.
Thank you.